Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. Today I want to talk about the band Bang. And I first came across them because I actually heard them on the radio. Capitol obviously gave them a big push, and they used to play Bang on the radio all the time. And I heard them. I was a teenage headbanger, and I loved it. So I went out and bought the album new. It was a big fan right from the beginning. So let's go over the band history a little bit. It's Frank Ferrara on bass, Frank Gilchin on guitar, Tony DiOrio on drums, and they came out of Philadelphia. And so the story goes that they used to be called the Magic Band, and then of course changed their name because of Captain Beefheart, obviously. And like a lot of these bands, they were teenagers when they met and first got together, and they were big Beatles fans and they were big Black Sabbath fans. So they worked on their harmonies a lot, and then of course obviously played a lot of massive riffs. And I'd love to hear Bang play some Black Sabbath covers. I bet they were pretty good at it. But there's a great story. First of all, they left Philadelphia and moved up to a rehearsal space in Delaware, and they practiced for 18 months, 7 days a week, and worked on their set. And they worked on uh, what would have been their first album if it got released. And so then they decided that they were great. They told everyone they were great, and they threw all their stuff in a van. They drove down to Florida, and they were told to just go and talk to people at this local concert with Rod Stewart and the Faces and Deep Purple, and they talked their way into opening the show. And everyone was so impressed that they quickly got some more opening shows for Steppenwolf and other bands in the area. And there was a bidding war going on, and Capitol signed the group. Not a surprise, because Capitol, of course, at the time was having huge success with bands like Blood Rock and particularly Grand Funk, and so they were looking for hard rock bands to sign. They signed another power trio out of Detroit at the same time, Head Over Heels, that issued an album around the same time. So Bang seems like a natural for them. But so they got signed to Capitol. They went in and recorded their first album, Death of a Country, and Capitol immediately turned it down. Said nobody wants to hear all these heavy topics and a rock opera or concept album. And so all that work, spending 18 months rehearsing this record, and they just ended up shelving that first album. That was in '71. And so Capitol told them, hey, you got 2 weeks to write and record a new album. And they did. So it's amazing that they threw all the material on that first Bang album all together in 2 weeks. And they did a bang up job because the record's great riffs, great guitar work, incredible singing. The band sounds great, and it was recorded really well, and I'm sure it would be in Criteria. And so they started having some success. They actually opened a bunch of shows for Black Sabbath, a good pairing. They were often called the America's version of Black Sabbath. I can see the comparisons. The vocalist definitely has some kinship to Ozzy Osbourne, and of course these huge metallic slabs. And so Bang opening for Black Sabbath would have been a great double bill. I'm sure everyone was pleased. And they did some pretty high profile shows. They played the Marys Hall Festival in Puerto Rico, and as I pointed out in one of my other videos, someone out there has a board tape of Bang playing at Mariosol because everything was recorded. A lot of things have got released, but the Bang hasn't, so it's sitting there somewhere. I'm not sure what it would take to access those tapes and get it released, but I'd love to hear what Bang's live sound was like. You can kind of approximate it listening to the Bang album, but it still would be great. Apparently they used to use Vox amps when they were still in Philadelphia, but by the time they got to Florida, they switched over to Marshall stacks. So they definitely were loud, and they'd have to be. And they released a single off of the first Bang album, Questions, and it was actually made it to number 90 in the Billboard charts in the U.S., and was issued with a picture sleeve in Germany, was issued with a picture sleeve in Japan. And so it definitely made some inways. I guess it got really high in the charts in Hong Kong, maybe even number 1 or 2. And rightly so. The song Questions is great. I can't believe they banged it out in 2 weeks because the song is great. It's really constructed well. The arrangement's excellent. Lots of hooks. Great melody. It's a great single, even though it's pretty hard rocking. And so then they quickly got put back in the studio to do their second album, Mother Bow to the King. And at that point, their original drummer was forced out, and Bruce Gary was brought in. He later was in the band The Knack, so an interesting transition, but great drummer. The second album, 1972, Mother Bow to the King, is really great. Quite a development, a lot more sophisticated, a lot more complex arrangements. Definitely really heavy hitting. The stuff on it that's heavy is really heavy and definitely comparable to Black Sabbath on all levels. But there's a pop side to it as well. And in fact, the Capitol wanted them to have a hit single, so they ended up convincing the band to play No Sugar Tonight by Guess Who, which was issued as a single and bombed. But the band definitely turns its back on that now. They've reissued that album themselves, and they left that song off it, and they don't speak very highly of that decision, which makes it all the more curious that Bang followed up Mother Bow to the King with Bang Music in 1973, and it's a real pop record. And there's some glimpses of the greatness of Bang, but I pretty much dismissed that third album. It's just too pop, and they did a couple non-LP singles right after that to fulfill their requirements with Capitol Records. A couple songs, Slow Down, Feels Nice, and Make Me Pretty, B-side of Must Be Love. And the last singles they did hint a little bit more at the original Bang sound, and so they're pretty worthy. But the Bang Music album from '73 is definitely really mainstream pop. And I find that really curious. The band was signed because they were a heavy band, and then the label insists that they have hits. And I know that's kind of how it works. Grand Funk had hits, even though generally their sound was a lot heavier. But for the band to record that third album, Music, and go full on pop, seems really like a weird decision. Their fan base was created because they were heavy. Their first and second album, at their best, are really amazingly heavy. And for them to just go full circle and alienate all their fans and everything their career was based on at that point, and make that third album just seems like a really weird decision. And particularly for '73, because a lot of heavy bands were still in their prime, still putting out a lot of heavy music. And Bang should have done a really stunning follow-up and made an album that was like totally heavy. They would have career probably would have sustained. So they were dropped from Capitol, and that was it. Bang was over. They reunited in 1996, and I'm sorry to say I'm not really interested in the reunion. It's great that they're going out there playing again. It's great that they're going out there playing for old fans and playing their old songs and writing new material, but it just isn't the same thing. Their time came and went. I'm not really big on some of these reunions 20 and 30 years later, and this is a prime example of that. But at their best, they were definitely one of the great heavy bands of the time. The first album is just classic. Great riffs, great guitar playing, great singing, and super heavy. And the second album, although it has some pop tendencies, which they did very well, their Beatles influence with the harmonies and some of the melodies shows, but they definitely upped the ante on the second album, and it would have been great if they had kept going further in that direction. So there you have it. I'll put some links below. If you haven't heard them, check them out. But Bang, love them, fucking love them, and at their best, one of the best. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.